That had to have been surreal, right? Like the end of your day, you're driving a cab in New York, and you just been at the White House earlier that day.
Telling people, guess what I did today?
Yeah.
And it was funny. They either laughed or they looked at their watch and they looked around and they wanted to get out of there as fast as they could get out of my cab. The next year, we ended up in India. We were in India, and that was when our embassy in Tehran was overrun. And we were in India. They had to sneak us out of town, out of Calcutta in the middle of the night. And fortunately, they had a plane for us and they flew us to Europe. I mean, we had all kinds of, but so it's been quite a ride,
So you sat in with the orchestra in the pit?
With the Vienna Philharmonic, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You didn't play.
I didn't play.
But you were present.
Pages, but they give it to young music students who are talented, yeah. And what it does is it really excites them in a way that because I wasn't that interested in classical music, so I auditioned and then got in, and so I started making impressions on people who were big shots in the business, mm-hmm. and ultimately performed and recorded with these people. They invited me to do all these things. And but it wasn't so easy because when I graduated from Curtis, I had a piece of paper saying I could play the clarinet.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
David Singer, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and then we want to talk about this amazing book that you wrote about your life, this just incredible life that you've lived, a life well lived, right? Thanks again for being here.
I'm honored to be with you. It's great.
So where were you born?
I was born in Temple Hospital, downtown Los Angeles, 1949.
So did you grow up in Los Angeles?
I grew up, the first 18 years of my life, I did grow up in the San Fernando Valley. My dad actually went to UCLA when I was actually born. So we lived in marriage student housing on Gailey Street right by UCLA. Then we moved to the San Fernando Valley because my dad got a job in a high school, Canoga Park High School, where he ended up teaching about 40 years.
Wow.
So I grew up in a little town called Canoga Park.
Yeah.
It's in the West Valley, San Fernando Valley. And, I grew up playing baseball and, being outside and I guess typical, going to the beach, typical kind of young boy growing into not a man, but, just until I was 18. And then I went back east to school.
So what was your favorite thing about growing up at Canoga Park?
There were fields, there were pomegranates, there were oranges, and I remember walking to school and sometimes the fog was just so thick I could stand in the middle of the field, no fear, and it just seemed like a very special place. I could be outside all day. I didn't have to worry. My relatives lived back east in New York, mm-hmm. and so they always had to be concerned about the weather. We didn't have to think. The weather didn't exist. It was always the same, right? So, I just loved being outside. But as I say, at 18, I went back east to school where it was really a conservatory mm-hmm. called the Curtis Institute of Music, where Leonard Bernstein and other composers and performers went. And all they did, everybody was white and pimply. And I was this tan, surfer, baseball player from Southern California. I really was out of sorts, and it was very difficult for me at first. But, I went back east and I didn't come back to live for more than 40 years.
Wow.
So,
Kind of a culture shock, though. It had to have been.
oh, it was very difficult for me for a few years, very hard.
Did you get homesick?
I was so homesick that the last days that I would be in California, this is kind of funny. I would take sand and put it in my pockets. We'd go to the airport, I'd fly back, and I put the sand underneath my bed in my room in Philadelphia. And I missed it very much. I miss Southern California very
That's
much.
amazing. I didn't know about the sand thing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So growing up in Canoga Park,
Yeah.
who was the most influential person to you growing up?
I honestly, the first person I can think of, and this is when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, really Vin Scully.
Oh, I love Vince Scully.
So I would go to sleep at night with my transistor under the covers, like a lot of kids, right?
Mhm.
So just the way he would describe, he just so the grass, was it high, was it wet? Would Maury Wills be able to steal bases that day, or that kind of thing? The wind, which way was it blowing, and all that kind of stuff. So right away I got into the poetry of how he would express everything, and so it just conjured up all kinds of things. So then, of course, when I went back east to school, I had more different kinds of heroes, music icons, that kind of thing, who I ended up performing and recording with. So it's very, very, I can't believe that some of the things that happened to me. And so I was very lucky. I'm very grateful.
So in high school,
Yeah.
and this is a little bit of a loaded question because your dad taught there, right?
Yeah.
But in high school, did
Yeah.
you have a favorite subject?
Well, music, I guess, music was a favorite subject. We didn't really have PE, physical education, so much. I liked being outside, like playing sports, and I guess I started to really like playing the clarinet because I was good at it. And I was getting attention and that kind of stuff. Even sometimes a girl would like me because I was good at playing the clarinet. I mean, it wasn't like the guitar, the Beatles, but I
Right.
mean, it was pretty good. And so that's how I got positive attention. And my parents saw that I was good, and they pushed it, and they did a lot. They did a lot to help me.
That's
in terms
cool.
of,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite teacher in high school?
I would say history. My history teacher, Mr. Allen. Um, I I remember him. He sort of he taught from a very human level. He would teach us about the fact that these people that we were talking about, if it was George Washington or Abraham Lincoln, you got into their lives and not so much personal lives, but just who they were as people, and how we could learn from them in terms of how to live.
It's
So-
amazing how teachers can affect you, like how they can reach you,
Sure.
right? And just like change your life. My mother-in-law was a teacher, and I just recently, a couple of months ago, accepted a position as an instructor. I'm an adjunct for a local college here, and I just love it. Anyway, it's like a lifelong dream come true. I've been teaching for decades, right? But I've been doing it for free, and now I'm a professional at it. So, yeah, it's crazy. So I love it though. So during your childhood,
Yeah.
you had some things that took place that you put in your book. Can you show us your book real quick?
Sure.
I want people to see this. Raise it up a little bit so we can see the title. There you go. From
Okay.
cab driver to Carnegie Hall, right?
Right.
From cab driver to Carnegie Hall. Perfect. There we go. So I wanted to, you mentioned this, or somebody mentioned this to me about your book. about a portion of it talks about your childhood. Can you talk about that for a second? I know you had shared before we got started where your parents came from, that kind of thing. Can you share that with us?
Well, so I'm hesitating. I mentioned that in one sense that my childhood was idyllic. Being outside and playing sports and for the most part having supportive parents. But at the same time, there were other things that went on that weren't so special. And so I was abused as a child. And so that's really hard to say. And so I go into my parents' lives and what happened to them. So my dad grew up, until he was 10, 11 years old, he lived in Hungary with his family. So his father, it was typical of what would happen is if people were interested in coming to the United States, this is a topic of interest, right? Mm-hmm. Immigration. So what happened was my grandfather, my dad's father, left Hungary and came to the United States. His brothers were living here. So he wanted to get a job, New York City, get a place to live, have some kind of a enterprise so he could provide for the family. 10 years later, he sent for the rest of the family. So the family, his mother, my grandmother, my dad's mother, and two sisters came, and they came in 1933, which was just when Hitler came to power. So there was a lot of things going on, a lot of fear, a lot of problems. And the rest of the family, in my book, I have a picture of the extended family in Eastern Europe, taken in 1933, just before my dad went with his mom and sisters to the United States, and the rest of them were wiped out in the Holocaust. Oh my God. So then my dad, so he was a stutterer. He was just a little boy clinging onto his mother's skirts. But 10 years later, he was at the Battle of the Bulge, and he won. He was awarded a Bronze Star at the Battle of the Bulge. So he was a fierce warrior, and people asked him what he did. And he, in the Second World War, he said, "I killed people. He was killing Nazis." So he came back, I'm sure, with what they call now PTSD, right? Mm-hmm. So he was wonderful outside the house. It was a wonderful, respected teacher, wonderful. But when he came home, he was always kind of fuming, and he had a terrible, terrible temper, and he was out of control sometimes. So that's my dad. But I go into his background. So my mom, earlier, 1922, when she was just a baby, her father was in the Russian army. But when you're in the Russian army in those days, that was a 20, 25-year hitch. Mm-hmm. And so it was right at the end of the Russian Revolution. So he left just after she was born with the mom, my grandparents, and they came from Ukraine in 1922. So my mom was about 6 or 8 months old. But a few years later, things got really bad, and they basically ran right into the Depression, where they had no work, they had no food, they had, they were going from place to place. My uncle, who later became very, very successful in the deli and liquor business in Southern California, very, very successful. He said that they moved often because it was easier and cheaper than paying the rent. So, it was that kind of thing. They had a very tough. So my mom went through a lot of trauma with being the father being out of work. They didn't have there was no work. There was the Depression. So she lived a very traumatic life. So together, it created an atmosphere at home that was very tough for me. Yeah. But at the same time, that I read in the book, they did wonderful things for me. Mm-hmm. So if it wasn't for my dad, and especially my dad, calling up the principal clarinetist, the best clarinetist to teach me and creating opportunities for me, I would have never become what I have become, an emeritus professor of music and emeritus performer from a Grammy Award winning group. And I never would have done that. So if it wasn't for my parents, but that my parents also created a very tough obstacle for me to overcome. And I've been to therapy with it, and you know, trying to help me through. And so I think through having certain things, reading certain books, it's helped me take one step at a time in a direction that I think I have the best chance to do well in. And a certain book called "What Color Is Your Parachute?" I don't know if you know that, by Bowles. It used to be a very famous book, where they would give you tests and ask questions, and then they would come to a conclusion based on your answers, that what direction you should be in. And so I was able to really find myself through music and children. I had a program that I developed called Music Magic. And so anyway, it's a long-winded answer, but my childhood was really a mix of staying out of my parents' way as much as I possibly could, and being outside. Maybe I liked being outside so much because it wasn't so great at home.
Right.
But anyway,
outside wasn't indoors, right?
Right. Yeah. I wanted to be a baseball player. I mean, but except that one time, this is a kind of a funny story. I remember doing pretty well as a pitcher. I was invited to a training camp with the Baltimore Orioles, just not the real training camp, but you know, they had these camps throughout the country, and they were looking for young talent, especially
where they scouted. Yeah.
Right. But when in a big game, if I was playing out in the field and it was in later innings, I used to pray. You know, people pray, but not often on a baseball field. I used to be out in the field praying that the ball would not be hit to me. I didn't want any part of having to decide, or I didn't want to be up with the bases. So I told my dad, and he said, "This is not for you. You should get into something else." So anyway, this just, I'm just jabbering. Anyway.
So I have to ask this.
Yeah.
Why would you pray that the ball would not be hit to you?
I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't have that much confidence. I didn't want to be the one to screw things up.
You didn't want to let the team down.
No, didn't want to let the team down.
Okay. So you decide at some point to play the clarinet. Can you talk about how that happened? Like,
sure.
It's not very common for somebody to just pick up the clarinet and start playing. What happened that caused that to take place?
I was in this funny story. I mean, it's just all these stories. That's why I wrote the book. I have so many stories. People said, "You know what? You should write a book." Yeah. So that's what happened. So third grade or so, Amory Rocky was in the class, this girl, and she was going to enter a talent show. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to enter a talent show. So I came home and I told my parents, "I want to enter a talent show." And they said, "But David, you don't know how to do anything." Great. So my dad,
might be a challenge.
Right. Find me one. So my dad was the music teacher at the high school, the band director, and he started bringing home instruments. Mm-hmm. You know, the violin, the cello, the whatever, the trumpet. I couldn't buzz my lips. Yeah. And the clarinet just kind of, I don't know, it just felt right. And he taught me a song called "Long, Long Ago." Mm-hmm. I entered the talent show, beat her, and then she wanted nothing to do with me after that. So
you won the talent show and lost the girl.
That's right. Story of my life.
Precursor for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah.
So you learned the lesson, right?
Yeah, right. But and the thing was, since and my dad thought, well, you know what? There's nothing else you can do, so you better start. You better keep practicing. Yeah. And I did. I just kept playing. I didn't stop.
So it just felt right.
Yeah, it felt right. And then I got involved with. Well, we had this incredible year. This is a long time ago. August 1st, 1961 to August 1st, 1962. Mm-hmm. My dad being a teacher, one of the perks of being a teacher, I'm not sure they still have this, but they have what they call a sabbatical. Mm-hmm. And so every 7 years, I believe, a teacher, high school teacher, middle school teacher, whatever, can take 6 months off to do a project with full pay, or you can take a whole year off with half pay. Half pay. So my dad was, as I say, a high school teacher. My mom, she worked very, very hard, but she was a housewife. And so she didn't make any money. But they were saving their money, renting out our house. And in those days, 61, 62, it was much cheaper, really, to live in Europe than it was here. So we spent the year in Europe. And so my dad, so we visited relatives that were still alive, and we went to Vienna. And so my dad called up the principal clarinetist in the Vienna Philharmonic, one of the great orchestras, and I played for him, and he took me in as a student. And the clarinetist had me come with him as a little boy. I was 12 years old, sitting in this orchestra, one of the great orchestras in the world. I related it to being the New York Yankees or LA Dodger bat boy. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I'm sitting in the middle of these great musicians, and the opera was going on, and people were, just all the rafters. I compared it to Dodger Stadium. I mean, it was just tremendous. And so, but the passion and all of the music was beautiful. And I thought, wow, I expressing emotions to people, get them to feel something. That's something that really excited me. And I thought, this is something that I really want to be part of.
So that had to have been an amazing experience.
Unbelievable.
So you sat in with the orchestra in the pit?
With the Vienna Philharmonic, yeah. You
didn't play.
I didn't play.
But you were present.
Pages, but they give it to young music students who are talented, and what it does is it really excites them in a way that because I wasn't that interested in classical music. I mean, I loved popular music. I loved the Beatles. I mean, I loved just different kinds of things, but classical music, not so much. But I learned that the clarinet, if you're going to make a living playing the clarinet, which is completely far-fetched anyway, I mean, of all trades to learn, I mean, go to trade school and be an electrician or a plumber or something like that, much more practical. I can play the clarinet. Oh, great. What are you going to do with that? So it's just, it was just an amazing time. And then I thought, when I came back to California, I thought, geez, all the things that I've done and people I've seen and who did I play for, and there's just no limit to what I can do. The sky's the limit. And so that's it.
So your dad called
the principal clarinetist. Yeah.
How did
he call him? I mean,
did he know him? Did he?
No. It's I guess it's different in law, or I mean, if you needed a really fantastic, the best heart surgeon, God forbid, if you need that, you ask people, right? But they're different people. So in music, if you're the principal clarinetist of an orchestra, especially the Vienna Philharmonic, people know. I mean, you're world famous. World famous. You don't make a lot of money compared to a doctor or a lawyer, but you're world famous, and so everybody knows your name. And so
your dad just picks up the phone and gets him on the phone?
Yes, and the phone in the phone book in Vienna, they have their title. So there's a doctor, or the wife is a Frau Doctor, and he was not sure, Vienna Philharmonic or principal clarinetist, or however they said it, and so his title, and my dad knew his name. He got the phone number, and they weren't making much money in those days. And my teacher, he has a story too, which I tell, because his wife was Jewish, and so he wasn't. So during the war, he was helping Jews, part of a network helping Jews and others escape Austria, because it was Nazi territory, And so he was kicked out of the orchestra, but a big conductor stood up for him, put back, and his wife, people in the orchestra that he was playing with said, if you want to get rid of your wife, just let us know, because we'd love to just take her and put her in a concentration camp. And so it was horrible for him, but he helped people escape. So that's part of, it's history. And so he was a hero to Jews who were had lived through that horrible time. My teacher was kind of like an Oscar Schindler. You know who that?
Yeah, Schindler's List. Yeah.
So not on the same scale, but now today if you go to the Vienna Philharmonic Museum in Vienna, there's a picture, there's a plaque with his name and a few others honoring them for their role in helping people escape the Nazis.
Any idea why your dad called him?
He wanted the best teacher for me. He wanted the best things for me. My dad was announcing a Little League game and I hit a home run. And he said, "That's my boy," over the loud this public speaker, Yeah. So, he loved me and I loved him. But, he had this thing, it's involved and it's in the book too. But it's the way it was, Kind
of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
We're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the book and we're going to talk more about your time, your 40 years in New York. We'll be right back. Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called no-conductor, and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with no-conductor. Go to no-conductor today, promo code Mike15. no-conductor, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today. We're back with David Singer. And before the break, we were talking about this amazing experience you had at 12 years of age with the Vienna Philharmonic. And oh my goodness, that had to have just been an amazing, life-changing experience. So you come back to Canoga Park, Dad goes back to work, all that, right?
Right.
How did that change your life? How did that change your perspective on the world and specifically your perspective on your life?
Well, I learned much more about my family's history,
Yeah.
Both of my parents being from Europe, and I met people who they knew as children. And we had traveled, we had driven across the country. We had taken a ship across from New York to Le Havre, France. We had driven all over Europe. I mean, went to Israel. We traveled the world for a year. I guess I was much more interested in music. I mean, hearing such fantastic players. So I got involved in an orchestra, a kids orchestra. I still played baseball. I still did all that stuff too. But this orchestra in Los Angeles, and so I made friends with other kids who were really keen on playing music and that kind of thing, kind of going in a path towards having a career. And in fact, some people, even today, I'm friends with, that I played with when I was 14, 15. And that's a million years ago. Yeah. So I started to do that. I went to the Music Academy of the West in Santa Barbara, which is a little higher level of, it's a little bit like if you were a basketball player or a baseball player, you go your local team, and then you're on a touring team, and then the different kinds of things. Then you get involved with maybe high school ball, and then you get scouted, and maybe you go into the minor leagues. So that's what happened to me as a player. And when I was in junior high school, I was invited to play in the UCLA band. Anyway, so that's what happened. I went to the Music Academy of the West in Santa Barbara and met people who were actually really having careers already back east, Juilliard and all the big schools where I went to school too, Curtis. And so ultimately came time to graduate. Where am I going to go to school? Well, Curtis Institute I learned later they had about a 3%, 3 to 4% acceptance rate. Pretty hard. The thing is, if you got in, it's free. It doesn't
Oh,
cost anything. You get
that's why it's 3%.
right. It's better. It's
It's elite, right?
harder to get into there than Harvard, maybe. I think Harvard has a little
Sounds like it.
in music.
Yeah.
They didn't care so much if you know, they wanted you to have decent grades, but really the whole thing was, it was like a baseball school or an academy or a tennis academy. This was a performer, music performance academy.
Right.
Really one of the top in the whole world. So I auditioned and got in. And so I started making impressions on people who were big shots in the business, and ultimately performed and recorded with these people. They invited me to do all these things. And but it wasn't so easy, because when I graduated from Curtis, I had a piece of paper saying I could play the clarinet. Great. Well, how are you going to make a living? And so I went back to Europe. My girlfriend, opera singer, had to go because there were more operas there for her to sing than here at the time.
Yeah.
And so she went, and I said, "Go. You know, if you go to Vienna," she got a Fulbright. They were called Fulbrights at the time.
Wow.
She got a Fulbright. I got a half bright. I called it a half bright. So it was kind of dumb to do, but I did it. And I got some jobs there. I played in the Johann Strauss Orchestra of Vienna, which is no local person wanted to play in the group because they paid so badly. But I got to play at these balls in the palaces and make $20, playing from 9 at night to 5 in the morning for $20. And I thought, wow, this is great. You know, this is idiot, you know. But anyway, my father was so frustrated with me. He didn't want to hear from me for a long time after that. But anyway, I came back a year later, and then things started to really pick up for me. But I was driving a cab. I mean, part of the book is overcoming obstacles and never giving up. So I drove a cab. For a year and a half. I sold welding supplies, was chased by dogs, you know, guard dogs. I had to climb fences, and to sell a welding supply, to make a living selling welding supplies, you have to do it through a purchasing agent, and you have to go there. They have their own people that they wanted to buy from. So I thought, this is
network. It's a good old boy network. Yeah.
So this is how I made a living, and I would sneak behind sometimes warehouses or big companies, and climb the fence, even though they said guard dogs, you know, beware, you know, shot on sight, whatever. I had to make a living, and this is all I was doing. I literally climbed the fence sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. The workers got there very early, 5:30. Anyway, I had to find where the welders were. And then I would say, obviously they knew I was a welding rod salesman, risking my life to be there. Here, try this. And sometimes they had me try it, and they would put a different polarity in the welder, and they would, you know, it would shock me. Anyway, they would try it. If they liked it, they would go to the purchasing agent, say, this stuff is good. This is what we want. And I made a lot of sales like that. So anyway, I had it hard. I told you a story. I played for the president of the United States, and I did it twice, 2 different presidents. And the first time, Jimmy Carter, really a long time ago, might as well have been Abraham Lincoln. So I played, and then I had to get back to New York and drive the cab. I had a gun. Different things happened to me that I could, you know, when you have a gun held to your head, you're being robbed, you know. So I did that the same day that I played for the president. I played with people. I don't know if you've ever heard of, for instance, Stockard Channing. Stockard Channing played Rizzo in Grease.
Yeah.
And you know, she played West Wing on TV.
Yeah.
You know,
one of my favorite actors. Yeah.
It was great. So I was in a play with her. I was chosen. It's called the lady and the clarinet. And so you know which role I play, the lady and the clarinet. So we did this at the Long Wharf Theater in New Haven, Connecticut. It's about her life with her different boyfriends through her the last many years of her life. And I was there hired to play background music. And then between her fights with each of her boyfriends as to why it didn't work, she would be talking with me about it and all that. And I'm on stage the whole time with her. And by the end, she's in love with me. And so that's, it's a kind of a crazy story, but they, anyway, I did a lot of things. And then I had to drive home in a car that was just completely broken down. And I had to try to, navigate these icy, windy roads with a death trap of cars. And anyway, I had a car that wouldn't go forward, only go backward. And I had to drive miles to get, it sounds like I'm making it up, but it's really the truth. And it's a story really of, if you really believe you're good at something and it makes sense. If you're 20 years old and you say, you know what, I want to be a pitcher, and you don't have any background, well, that's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But there was a guy whose name is Mark Cuban. You probably know who he is, right?
Yeah, I know who he is.
So I used to tell my daughter, whatever's going to get you out of bed in the morning, it's freezing cold, it's snowing, you haven't had enough sleep the night before, what's going to make you get out of bed and be excited about going to work? Well, what is that? And that's what you should do. Mm-hmm. And Mark Cuban said, no, that's part of it. But really what you should do is find those things that you're good at. You're doing amazing things. You're a teacher, you're doing all these things at a college, you're helping people, you're inspiring people. Find what you're good at. And if it makes some sense that you can see, that's what you should go out for, not just what you love. And whatever you're good at, you'll love. You'll end up loving, because if you're good at it, you'll love it. So that's what you do. Don't just think about what you love right off the bat and do it. It may not make any sense. It has to make some sense. You have to be good at something, and then you do it. Anyway, yeah. So
the time that you're in New York, you're there for 40 years.
Right.
Are you teaching while you're there?
I did some private teaching. I ended up as a professor at a local state university called Montclair State University. Mm-hmm. And by the end of my tenure there, I was just there 23 years. I wasn't there that long, actually. But I could see New York. I had a corner office. I was part of a group that helped recruitment. Recruitment is key for a college, for a university.
Yeah, it's the lifeblood.
Yeah. And so when I got my job there, 1989, it was like a ghost. The music part was a ghost town. Mm-hmm. The music building they were barracks, basically old army barracks or something. It was terrible. So it was terrible. Try to get a kid interested in going there. Nobody wanted to go there because there was nothing for them to do. So I was part of a team that created opportunities for students. And I was also willing to work with the college students at large. So I would have a class in music appreciation, say, mm-hmm. and I'd have more than 100 kids in my class, and more and more kids wanted to be in my class, so I would do 2 classes or whatever, and so that helped the music department as well. I took kids, the college kids, and formed little groups with them, and they were playing together, and I would take them to local high schools. We did things. I would take kids to New York, and they would hear me play in Carnegie Hall, and so there were more and more things for the students to do, and word spread, and I was part of it. I wasn't the whole thing. So by the time I left, we were the flagship department of the university. We had somebody donate tens of millions of dollars for a concert hall, and now his name is prominent, and every time he or his family goes by Montclair State, there is his name. Another one donated, John J. Calley donated money for a new building, and that was fantastic. So it was quite a success, and so I was honored, and they I was part of that team, so that was really, really great. So so I was teaching. That's what I ended up doing as a teacher.
What was your favorite thing about being a professor at Montclair?
One of the most favorite really was that class. I mean, the kids came into the class not caring about classical music. They didn't care. They just wanted what they thought would be an easy A or something like that. But through YouTube, I showed them, there's an opera called Carmen. Okay, Carmen is about this incredibly beautiful, sexy woman who is kind of a street woman. She's probably, a prostitute or something like that. But she gets put in jail, and she seduces the chief of police to get her out of jail. She said, if you get me out of jail, I'll run away with you. So you know what that means. So he was this idiot, and he threw away his profession, his personal life. So what happened though to him, this is a story of what happened to him and what happened to her as a result of, so in the process, she does these sexy dances and all that. So anyway, I showed my college kids this, thing from Carmen by Bizet. It's a famous opera. It's a world-renowned, people pay many, many, many hundreds of dollars to sit into one perform in LA. If you wanted to go into LA to hear Carmen, probably cost you $400 or $500 to have a decent seat. Okay, for one performance. So anyway, of Carmen. So I showed them Carmen. I showed what it's supposed to be. And I said, you know what? It's playing at the Metropolitan Opera right now, and I'll give you credit if you go there and write a review of what you say. They went. They finally, some of those kids living 20 miles from New York City, they never went into New York City. They were afraid or whatever. They heard Carmen, they heard different operas as a result. So I kind of put a human aspect to it. I was the stories are, it's like soap opera. And, they didn't know that. They didn't know that composers living hundreds of years ago were human, and they had all kinds of ideas, and they expressed them, and they wanted people to go. So our kids went, and then they were not the worse off for it. I think that they had a good time, and it's great music. That's classical music.
Do you mind if I make an observation?
Yeah.
Earlier, we talked about your history teacher and how your history teacher made the George Washingtons of the world real people.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're emulating what you learned from that teacher in that class.
A little bit, but my teacher, that's true. I mean, but he presented them all as believing certain principles and much higher kind of thing. What I did was, okay, in the Baroque period, composers had basically two ways to make money. They could be paid by the church, and then they would write for the church. They would write beautiful sacred music, or they could write for the aristocracy. And the aristocracy, the kings, that was how you made a living. So basically, you can differentiate different periods of music based on who you think paid for the painting or the music that you hear. Is it ceremonial? Is somebody had to pay the composer, and whoever it was, that's how you find what period of a certain piece or a certain book or painting was written. And so, anyway.
The point I'm getting at is your history teacher figured out a way to reach you.
Yes.
You figured out a way to reach them.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Because when the students in your history class came in, they didn't care anything about history. It was just something they had to do, right? It was one of the boxes they had to check. I have to get a grade in this class, right? At the end, they cared about, not all of them, but some of them, including you, cared about history because he reached you.
Yeah,
You did the same thing when you were teaching.
that's true.
And it's phenomenal. It's absolutely, I mean, it's one of the things that I love, dearly love about the teaching profession is the passion that a teacher has to reach their students. Like every single time I've ever taught a class or a training, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I've always worked incredibly hard to reach them, to get them, right? And you know it when it happens. And it's you can't put a price tag on this. It's when somebody you're teaching actually, it's absolutely true. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Man, when they get it,
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this. Okay. It is transformative. It really is. And it's one of the things that I believe brings teachers back and brings students into the idea of being an educator, because they're emulating, just like I feel like you did, right? So anyway, I just think that's remarkable. And that's why I love these life stories. I love the lessons that have been learned. And so the title of your book, can you show us your book real quick? It's Cab Driver
From Cab Driver
to Carnegie Hall. Okay.
I just wanted to say,
Go ahead.
So it's been out just over a year, and just a couple of weeks ago it was announced that this book won a competition in New York called the New York City Big Book Award. It won first place they didn't call it first place. It was the winner in a category of autobiography. So of all the autobiographies internationally that were entered into this competition in New York City, this one was the one that won. And so, so I wanted to mention that.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, it's great. Really wonderful. And it's interesting. I wanted to tell my story and mostly hopefully inspire people that if I can overcome certain things that happened to me, they can too, and there are ways that you can go about doing it. And I feel wonderful. The Los Angeles Public Library main branch has embraced it. There's a lot of, it's being sold on 4 continents. And so it's my story, and it could be a lot of people's story. They're doing something they don't particularly want to do, and they feel trapped, and they feel like there's it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to do it for the rest of your life. There are just certain things that find something else that makes some sense that you think you can do well, and that take the small steps. Each day you need to take the small steps towards accomplishing your goal, and you can do it. You can do it.
Anybody can.
Yeah.
You have to decide. You have to commit, right? I have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
So what was it like? A friend of mine just recently sang in a choir that performed at Carnegie Hall. What was that like the first time?
A little scary. I was playing with my group, Orpheus. Orpheus is another example. When Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, a group of about, at the time, 25 people, no conductor, we were playing for free. Actually, the substitutes were getting money, but the members were playing for free. And so when they asked me to be a member, I had to think about it. But fortunately, so Carnegie Hall was was the first time the group played in Carnegie Hall. So there we would go out and we're going to play. And this is it's going to sort of decide. I mean, it's a big turning point. What's going to happen? And it went, tremendously, and people were standing up and applauding and all this kind of stuff. And within a few weeks, the State Department got in touch with us. We were doing tours for the State Department. They would send us to places. We ended up in 1979, the next year, we ended up in India. We were in India, and that was when our embassy in Tehran was overrun. And we were in India. They had to sneak us out of town, out of Calcutta in the middle of the night. And fortunately, they had a plane for us, and they flew us to Europe. I mean, we had all kinds of, but so it's been quite a ride, you know.
How scary was that, being snuck out of Calcutta?
You know, you don't, the people who were guarding you were Indian. They're people from there. And you look out and they say 1 million people sleep on the street every night in Calcutta. So you see fires. They were turning over cars and burning American flags. There was a movie, Argo, I think it was called.
Argo, yeah.
Where, isn't that what happened? They snuck people out there. They were pretending to be a movie crew or something.
Yeah, they were actually a film crew from Canada, or pretending to be a film crew from Canada. Yeah.
Exactly. So
I love that movie.
we had that kind of situation. We were in a very large city, surrounded by people who hated Americans, and we went very quietly to. And the person driving the bus to take us out, the people guarding us, were, you know, and their blood was like the people who couldn't stand Americans. So we didn't know which direction they were going to be pointing their gun. But when we got on the plane, even, it was nerve-wracking. When we took off, then, you know, it was okay. But it was tough.
Had to have been a relief.
Yeah.
So we talked about Carnegie Hall. Let's talk about the White House for a second.
Sure.
So you go to the White House. I mean, this is heady stuff, right? You go to the White House and you play in the Carter administration.
Also
and then
Clinton.
Also Clinton, but I'm talking about the first time, right? Yeah. So the first time you go, you play at the White House, you leave, and you have to get back to New York so that you can drive your cab.
Right.
Can you talk about that for a second? What was it like going to the White House for the first time and playing, and then leaving and having to, that had to have been surreal, right? Like the end of your day, you're driving a cab in New York, and you just been at the White House earlier that day.
Telling people, guess what I did today?
Yeah.
And they, you know, it was funny. They either laughed or they looked at their watch and they looked around and they wanted to get out of there as fast as they could, get out of my cab. You know, when you're asked to do something with the president, if you're going to be around the president and that, they don't just take you and I say, hey, you want to play for the president? No. People who I had not spoken with in years, friends of mine or people that I had worked with, called me and said, you know, this very strange person called and asked if they could ask questions about me. And they wanted to know if they knew me, was I a good person, what kind of beliefs did I have? And so they do a lot of research on everybody who goes through those doors. Yeah. And even when you do but this was also both times, it was obviously before 9/11. So the Clinton, the time I did it with Clinton, it was rather relaxed. Although I had to have my case open outside and they looked at everything and it was, so, but that's part of it. But the Carter thing was the performance. I met Carter. I met his wife Rosalind, and I mentioned I said she doesn't wash a lot of dishes. I know that. Her hands were, Anyway, yeah. I mean, you're playing for aristocracy. Later, I played for the aristocracy in Vienna. It used to be the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So they have, their palaces and they have their very important people, government people. But anyway, so when I played and I met them, met the Carters, and then I had to leave. And I had to leave before everyone else. So somebody came with me, to guide me out. And and then I went back and that's what it was. That's what my life was like, playing in Carnegie Hall and then driving my cab. I mean, that's from cab driver to Carnegie Hall. That was my life. And so from the White House to driving my cab, I could have said from cab driver or from the White House to whatever, to my cab.
Right.
that was my life. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So at some point you decide to leave New York after 40 years.
Right.
What made you do that?
My wife at the time was not well. She had this heart condition called tetralogy of Fallot, which is a congenital disease of the heart. The doctors didn't expect her to live past her 20s, but she was a fighter, and she was in her 60s. They couldn't believe that she was still alive. She was getting worse. We knew it was just a matter of time. I wanted to have some time with her to go to Europe or travel around and have some fun with her, and I couldn't do that holding down a job as a professor or whatever. So those were reasons. Also, I knew, and this is kind of morose, but I knew that I didn't want to die back east. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life back east. I was a California kid, and that's just who I am. And so I wanted to come home, and I wanted to be with family here, which I have, and I'm doing now. My daughter lives a few miles away in Ventura, and so it's great. My wife is from here, and I remarried, and very happy. So that's what were some of the reasons why I left New York.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now other than being an author?
Yeah, well, actually different things. I was involved in a project at USC, University of Southern California. They have an orchestra music program, very highly thought of, nationally ranked. They wanted their orchestra to play a concert like Orpheus. So Orpheus, or Pheus, plays without conductor. So what that means, and now it's 30 people or so, 35 people. We used to play for CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. They were very interested because we were very successful. In the 80s and 90s, we had this huge recording contract with Deutsche Grammophon, which is a big company, and our sponsors were All Nippon Air, Lufthansa. I mean, we had big sponsors, and they knew we were successful, bringing in a lot of money. Had an office of many workers, several $1 million a year. It's a music group. We started playing for free, and it became very successful. Anyway, they wanted to know how the flat management style, how does it work? If you don't have one boss, how do you get a world-class product out of chaos? How do you do it? How do you do the conflict resolution? How does that work? So they paid us to rehearse our first rehearsal of a set of rehearsals before Carnegie Hall. And then they would come to some of our rehearsals, and then they would have tickets to go to our concert in Carnegie Hall. And so they could see they heard mistakes in the beginning. They heard arguments. No, it should go like this. No, it should be like this. And how we resolved personal issues with that. And so it's very So did I answer your question?
Kind of. So what's the secret?
Well, first of all, the secret is be a good listener. Be at least as good a listener as you are a person who it's easy to lead. Do it my way. This is the way it goes. That's it. It's harder to weigh and to try things and to be open. And they say, leave your ego at the door. That's pretty hard to do. But the secret really is to be grounded in what they call chamber music. Chamber music is small groups of people, no conductor, and you put a piece together, like all the great composers, Mozart and Schubert and Beethoven, they wrote, for instance, like a string quartet. So that's 4 people. And they have this piece, first violin, second violin, viola, cello, and you have to, so who has the melody? Who has the melody in the beginning? Whoever has the melody in the beginning should lead. Should that they have the melody, they have to give the cue, and they have to give the tempo. Now, if you say, if you're playing second violin and you don't have either of those things, you might say, you have the melody, and that's very true. Could we try it like this? And could we try a little bit different? And so that's the way. It's kind of like a roadmap that through 30 minutes of great music. And one of the ways is it's like having a conversation. It's like with friends. Somebody has something to say. You listen. Oh, really? Did that happen? Oh, then what happened? You're kind of trying to get them to express themselves, and then somebody else has something to say. So that's what chamber music is, and that's what the group of Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, again, starting playing for free, won Grammy Awards, big success all over the world, and you can still on Sirius XM, Symphony Hall is the program nationally. You can hear us at least once or twice a week on recordings that we made 30 years ago. Also KUSC from USC. So yeah, I was part of that. I was very fortunate, very fortunate. I've been very fortunate. I'm very lucky.
I can tell. You've earned a lot of it, but I can tell.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing about working with USC?
Well, for instance, the kids are great. They're wonderful. They're smart. They're very talented. But they were going to play a piece, a romantic piece, not a esoteric piece, a piece that they all knew, piece that they probably played with conductor. That was the first piece, Rossini, Barber of Seville. So they were going to play this piece. So then they said there was about 80 of them, and I was the coach. And so I just sat there, and they didn't know what to do. And I said, so what are you going to do? Who's going to start it? And they looked at each other. These are really talented kids, college kids going to USC. And I said, well, what makes sense to you? Who should start this thing? And who has the lead in the very beginning? Oh, the concertmaster. Oh, well then so that's the person. So that's the person that makes the sound. And another piece was started by the percussion, and they couldn't figure out who's going to lead it. You have to know who is in charge in the beginning, who has the most important voice. It was the percussion. You had to go, that kind of thing. That's the one who everybody has to, the corner of their eye, follow the person with the melody or thing, and then who has it after that, and who has it after that. And you have to play softly enough so that the person with the melody will come through. So that's basically how it's done.
So it's a balancing act.
And you're always thinking, now, is it my turn to play the melody, or most of the time, 90% of the time, you don't have the melody. So you're a good support person. You're the one in a conversation that says, oh, really? Then what happened? That kind of thing. You're not talking, you're not the main speaker. So that's the way it's done.
So I believe that we lead better by asking questions. And I think you're proving it in what you just told us.
Right.
So one final question for you.
Sure.
What was your favorite thing about writing your book?
That's a great question. I think it was great therapy to write things that, hadn't so much expressed. I think it's
kind of cathartic. Was it a little cathartic?
Yeah, absolutely. And so also I'm hearing from people who have taken a look at their lives, and they have started to regenerate their interest again in other things. And I kind of provide steps where you can do certain things to help you on your way towards finding, your what you really want to do. That's very, and then of course it's really nice to get have friends and people say, hey, I really enjoy your book and all that kind of stuff. I'm working with my wife and my daughter on it. They help with public relations, the website, the things that I don't, they're great help to me, and I get to work with these people, with my family. So that's all very gratifying.
So is Alexis your daughter?
Pardon? No. She's not my daughter. She is a PR person that works through someone that I hired to be my agent.
Yeah.
So Lexus works for him, I think, or she might be. She's not my daughter. She's wonderful though. She's great. She does.
Yeah, she's
great
amazing.
work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I said it was the last question, but I've got one more.
Okay.
Is there any question that I should have asked you in this interview that I didn't?
Oh my goodness gracious. I can't think of any. Can't think of any. What am I supposed to say? I'm supposed to say my website is singerclarinet.com.
There you go.
And the book is, you can buy it.
Show us the book. Show us the book.
No, you can get this book not only at Barnes and Noble and
Amazon.
You can get it at Target.
Wow.
Or Walmart. You know what that is? This relates to people, all kinds of people. Yeah. I didn't write it for musicians. Yeah. I didn't especially, it's for people. Online, Target, Walmart, anywhere, just so many places. And again, it's being sold all over. India, all over the place.
Are you doing any speaking at all?
I do these kinds of things. I do podcasts. I really enjoyed talking with you. You're great at bringing me out. Not really. A little bit in church or synagogue. If people are raising money, I'll play, and then I'll tell them about my book, and I do that. That's my fee. I don't ask for any money. So that's about it.
David Singer, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a blast. I've enjoyed every second of it.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you very much, Mike.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called no-conductor. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. no-conductor. And the promo code is Mike15, no-conductor, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.